We have a Supermoto. Yes. What up, tubers? Back at it with another build video for you guys. This one should be pretty quick, but I want to give you as much info as I can. This day has finally come. I got this bike earlier this year, finally got the money together to get some Supermoto wheels, and that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be transforming this from the Enduro to a Supermoto. I'm going to be showing you the things you need to do. I'm going to be using the stock chain, so we're going to be shortening that. Kickstand's obviously too long in stock form. We're going to be shortening that up. I have a complete badass high performance front brake system we're going to be installing by MotoMaster, and then I'm going to show you how to program your speedometer to be accurate for the wheel size. This is my second set of Warp 9 wheels. I had a 2005 KTM 450 EXC that I bought custom wheels for, and I bought this pretty much the same ones, just changed up the color, and the sizes are the same. 17 inch, got the 4 1/4 out back, cush drive. Black everything besides the rim, and then wrapped them in the Michelin Pilot Power 2 CTs because it's a great tire, performs great, and it's a good price. My bike is still sadly all stock besides the seat concept seat, which actually came on the bike from the factory, so it's gonna be nice adding some aftermarket shit to it. Looks like I got some helpers. You gonna help, Monica? Yeah? Mia? You gonna hand me like a 10mm wrench or something? Mike, can you hold the camera? Do something. So Warp sends you a number of items when you order the Supermoto wheels. For instance, these are the 2 spacers for the front wheel. The instructions say you might have to use your stock spacers. It all depends. The rear spacers are already in the wheel. Since I got the oversized fixed rotor, they give you the proper caliper bracket for that, but we're not going to use this because it's not going to work for the MotoMaster front brake system. I already have this here. I did all the measurements of the bolt circle, of the bracket. Everything should fit. This is a complete system, built 4-piston caliper, very, very powerful, radial master cylinder, and I believe this is a 320mm rotor, floating front rotor. It's basically bigger than a dinner plate. They also provide you with Loctite. This is very important for your brake components. Number one, I'm going to start by taking off the rotor that's on the front wheel and swapping it out for the MotoMaster rotor. So just an observation from ordering my old wheels to ordering these, it looks like Warp switched over to a Torx head rather than your regular hex bolt. They also offer a titanium bolt option if you're into that. The reason this hole is here is you install your speedometer magnet in there with a little snap ring on the back, and every time this goes around it hits the pickup, and that's what gives you your speed. So there's a pretty big difference between these 2 rotors here. We have brand, obviously. This is just a fixed steel rotor that just gets bolted right to the hub. Now this one does too, but this is actually 2 pieces, and it's a floating front rotor and it flexes a little bit. Also, there's quite a bit of difference in the thickness here. This is a thicker rotor. Right before I bolt this down, I'm actually going to pull off the magnet off the stock KTM rotor because it's a little bit of pain to get like the snap pliers in between the spokes and shit. So I just found it easier to put it in before you actually bolt it to the hub. Boom, there we go. You always want to make sure to tighten your bolts in a crisscross pattern rather than around in a circle. You want it to be nice and flat. Next task on the agenda, I'm actually going to remove the entire front brake system as a unit, remove the fork guards and take the front wheel off so we can install the new one. I did some looking at the fork guards the other night because on previous years they have actually notched out the inside of the fork guard to make space for your wider wheel. So we're going to see the areas that are going to need some trimming after the front wheel is on. So it looks like this side is the side that you're going to want to keep tight, but I think there's a removable cap on the end of that axle. This one appears more of a actual nut, so we're going to loosen this side. I think the reason they might do that is so you can run sliders in here. You don't have to like drill nothing out. And on this side, on the inside here, I'll show you when I get it out, there's an actual cap in there, another cap. So we should be able to remove these now and then kick this axle out. Stop, Monica. Monica, stop. Yeah, you see that? So, this here is actually pinched here, but it looks like this machine cap can come off and that plug in there can come out, and it's a hollow unit. The aftermarket wheel spacers that came from Warp actually looks very, very similar in design to the stock ones. So I think we're gonna be okay with using the ones that came with the kit. Next step, I'm actually gonna remove the entire front brake system as a unit. Your front brake master cylinder is going to have a front brake switch, which I don't have one for the Moto Master kit. It is available, I'll get it later. Either way, the rear brake has a fully functional rear brake light, so I'm covered. Something unexpected here, I don't know if this is new or not, but we're not going to be using this sleeve. Since I'm taking this off as a unit, I still need to use the speedometer cable. It looks like it's all ran through this sleeve here. And I honestly think that the Moto Master brake line is too thick anyway to fit in here, so I'm just going to cut this off. Don't need that. Now we have our caliper to remove. The reason I take the whole system off as one unit is that way you don't have to worry about brake fluid getting all over the place. And let's just say one weekend you want to throw your dirt setup back on and go hit the trails or something. You know, it's a very, very fast and simple install, and you don't have to worry about bleeding brakes and shit. Now you're going to want to pop out the other piece of the speedometer cable out of your bracket and install it on the new one. It's really nice that they made a two-piece system for this year, because on the 05 that I had, you actually had to spin the bracket around the actual cable. It was a pain in the ass. Now you can actually just unclick it and screw this as a separate piece. It's very nice. Thanks, KTM. So now we're going to have the reverse procedure for disassembling and taking the wheel off. You're actually going to tighten the pinch bolts over here on this side, the throttle side. That way you're able to tighten the axle nut, and then you can finish it off by tightening these two pinch bolts. Alright, so I'm ready to put on the caliper bracket. This is where your Loctite comes into play. Very important. You want to make sure to look behind here and make sure you didn't use bolts that were too long. That's going to hit the rotor. All right, here we go for the, if my dog would get out of the way. Yes, I love you too. Back up, back up. Okay, thanks, Say. All right, we're going to put the actual caliper on now. What's really nice about the Moto Master kit, the brake pads come out through the back and you just shove the pin through with a little clip. You actually don't need to take the whole caliper off when you need to do brake changes. Now the reason I took that whole sleeve off here that was holding both of these lines in, you can see just how much thicker this brake line is. It actually has its own little clear sleeve going over it, so it wouldn't have fit. And I remember on my 05, it's actually a little bit too big for the fork guard, so I just leave the screw just a little bit on the looser side. It's still actually tight, it doesn't clamp it so much to the fork because it's actually a little bit too big in diameter with this plastic housing. Setting your wheel size for the new Supermoto wheels is fairly simple. You first need to locate a connector coming off your speedometer that has a black, brown, and red wire, which is actually this one right here. You have to disconnect that. So when you first wake up your speedometer, there's going to be a number that shows up, and it's going to be 2205, which is for your big dirt bike wheel. So you have to be in the hour setting. There's a little H in the bottom right hand corner. You're going to hold the plus sign for about 2 or 3 seconds, and that brings up a list of all kinds of stuff. WS is what you're going for, wheel size. That will not show up unless you disconnect that wire that we just did. So you're going to use the minus sign to scroll over to WS. And once you get there, hit the plus sign. And you're going to change that number 2205 to 1882. It's going to cycle through the settings and then return back to our main screen. Once our speedometer shuts off, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that our setting is saved, but instead of actually waking it up by hitting one of the buttons, I'm going to spin the front wheel, make sure our magnet's working. Of course, you're going to want to connect the connector that we disconnected first. Alright, our front wheel spun, so that's reading properly, and you saw 1882 popped up, so that is done. Looks pretty sweet. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to source a front Supermoto fender. I guess I'll have to really sit back and look at it, but might as well throw that rear wheel on. So this is a cush hub. This is common on a lot of street bikes. Warp offers this, and this is my second set with this. Highly recommend it. But what happens is the sprocket is attached to a different piece, and it has lugs in it, and there's these dampening bushings inside of the actual hub on the wheel. And as you get that power transition from the front sprocket to the rear, it cushions it. Cush drive. It's worth the extra money. Starting to look like something now, tubers. I decided I didn't want to buy an aftermarket kickstand or a stock replacement because I'm probably not going to be swapping this back to dirt for quite some time. And if I choose to do so, I can get a longer one, but for now, I'm going to heat up lightly. At the end of the kickstand here, there's some adhesive in there that's going to melt. I'll be able to pull out the little plug, shorten it. I'm going to go for 1 inch first. I actually ended up shortening this about 1.25 inches because 1 inch didn't seem enough. I still haven't taken the bike off the stand yet, but I think that's a good baseline to start at. This here, I just had to hit this on the soft wheel to make the OD a little bit smaller and shorten it just a little bit. So once I confirm that we're at the proper length, I'll glue that back in place. I'm basically just gonna mark the general area where the trimming is necessary. Use that as a reference line and take out a little bit more just for clearance. Now this is what I was referring to earlier. The Motomaster brake line is a lot thicker because it has this housing on the outside of the line. So I also said that I'm running the lines on the outside of the fork instead of squeezing them in here. A lot of guys do that. It's been worked out. It worked out for me in the past, so I'm gonna do the same thing. So on the inside here, there's one half moon here that's bigger and one smaller. That's because the brake line's a lot bigger than the speedometer cable. I'm basically gonna be attaching this, but not necessarily torquing it down all the way. Just enough to keep it in place, but not crush it. So off camera, I actually redid the routing of these two because it's a lot cleaner now that they're not like overlapping and twisting. It's nice and straight now. All the way up, through the back, over here to the side of the handlebar. So it was bothering me, and to be honest, I didn't want anyone out there watching this with OCD to have a heart attack. So the whole front end's done, everything. All I really need to do is bleed the front brake system, put some fresh stuff in there. The last real thing I need to do is put the chain on, take some links out, and then clip it together, and that's really it. At that point, I'll go ahead and take it off the center stand, see how the kickstand sits, and if I'm happy with it, I'll go ahead and glue it in place. So I went ahead and adjusted the wheel forward a little bit. That way, when we cut the chain, we can move it back, and we're not gonna be all the way back on the swing arm or all the way in the front. I'm kind of in the middle right now, which is a good spot to be. There's plenty of movement in the wheel. I think that's a good spot to start at. So what I do, I look here, and I'm looking at what link needs to come out. This one right here. Because when you take that out, you're gonna have two female ends for the master link. Now all I really have to do is just make sure the chain has the right slack. It's up on the stand right now, so I'm going to go a little bit on the looser side because it's going to tighten up once the bike drops down and the suspension compresses. We have a Supermoto. Yes! I think I'm happy with the length of the kickstand. It leans enough, you know? Well, I'm damn sure happy with that, guys. That color combo is so nice with this bike. It's finally lower, and I'm not tiptoeing and falling over and shit. I'm actually really excited to freaking ride this thing. But hey, that's the shit, man. I've been waiting for this for a long time. All I'm really gonna do now is just bleed the front brakes. I might as well bleed the rear brakes while I'm at it. And then I'll go ahead and take her out this weekend. There she is out in the daylight. Sorry the video is kind of on the longer side, but I wanted to give you guys as much detailed information as possible. Good news is too, there's still time left in the season to get some rides in. So that's it. If you like today's video, you know what to do. If you're new, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.